tariffs, topics of the day, imports, exports, ships idle on the dock of the bay, monopoly, Wall Street, financial experts, but the consumers is the one that has to pay. Systematic design to keep us behind, like they don't know we're the ones behind. The fashion, the music, the culture, where their offsprings come to nurture, like Earth, Mother. But our journey be easier with the involvement of the Father. New World Order. Imagine coming to America and be trapped inside the border with fake friends that's like 4 quarters. They would change for $1. The rapture, brother against brother, rather side with the other. The scripture, the Bible, Cain and Abel. Judas was at the table. When I pass the graveyard, I don't whistle, cause like most genius, I'm unstable. You existing in the zoo, I'm thriving in the jungle. Plus I just look like this. I'm deceptively efficient. My mental poison be potent. Keep that mumble rap, you incoherent. The university is on tilt. I'm building generational wealth. Belts at the Met. If I was a swimmer, I'd be like the world record holder. Phelps. Yeah. Gem out the jewel. I'll have your trainer throwing in the towel. Lineage, Masonic, without the trowel. I'm highly decorated like the Joint Chief of Staff. Oh well, gem out the jewel. I'll have your trainer throwing in the towel. Lineage, Masonic, without the trowel. I'm highly decorated like the Joint Chief of Staff. Oh. Words are like wind, but there are some words that men should die for. Simple. Plus, we stay ready, so we don't have to get ready. Listen up. If you no fit, then no force it. Stop to put your cap where you can't reach it. Brr, brr, ray, ray, I no mean it. Holla say a bad man, but you never did squeeze it. If you no fit, then no force it. Stop to put your cap where you can't reach it. Brr, brr, ray, ray, I no mean it. Holla say a bad man, but you never did squeeze it. Fool, please, you cannot see the forest because of the trees. We're keeping this thing at 100 degrees, and we're moving like the cartel straight to Belize. With ease, no cap, we cap knees. We know the ramp nor tease. You won't have to pay interest by your fees. So you know what? They pay wrong with me cheese. While then the bun coals, and I ain't man keep scribing scrolls. The real story I've never been told, but how we bring enough of them from out of the cold. After me, them broke the mold. We as dangerous as Ricky front of your goal. Fire, so drop and roll. Swimming at the deep end of the jungle, did the solo. If you no fit, then no force it. Stop to put your cap where you can't reach it. Brr, brr, ray, ray, I no mean it. Holla say a bad man, but you never did squeeze it. If you no fit, then no force it. Stop to put your cap where you can't reach it. Brr, brr, ray, ray, I no mean it. Holla say a bad man, but you never did squeeze it. This thing deeper than blues past the reef. They don't want to put in their works alongside them belief. From this inferno you don't find no relief. So stay out of the kitchen if you can't take the heat. So Indian they try be chief. Claim them the preacher, big chief. Call yourself Rasta, still want beef. Pretending to be a wolf but you're woolly like sheep. If you no fit, then no force it. Stop to put your cap where you can't reach it. Brr, brr, ray, ray, I no mean it. Holla say a bad man but you never did squeeze it. If you no fit, then no force it. Stop to put your cap where you can't reach it. Brr, brr, ray, ray, I no mean it. Holla say a bad man but you never did squeeze it. Tell me, where you come from? With no bad intention. Manifestation of Satan. Real demon. This done no sprint, marathon. Sufferation, they never part of judge a plan. But who gone through the trials and tribulations? Me one, for y'all with the sing me sing song. Music that with life and with passion. And never ready for the dedication. But they want come join in a celebration. Bold compilation. Catch in the joke, feed the caution. That the truth we stand upon. Original done.
Good evening, greetings. It is Wednesday again. I am G. Michael Reid. Welcome to our weekly podcast where we have no scapegoats, no sacred cows, no axe to grind, just truth and nothing but the truth. So help us, God. And we're expecting, as usual, our co panelists. I'm hoping Susan shows up and Joe should be showing up tonight. I don't foresee any particular guests, but from time to time, we do have people dropping in. We want to invite you, the listener, to be involved. You have any comments? Type them up and we will put them on the screen and read them out and make sure that we discuss them also. Let me see what's going on. My camera is a bit off right here. Okay, am I being seen there? It looks a bit small and going off on the side. Let's see what I can do here. All right. Again, we do this every Wednesday evening. This is our fourth year running, actually. Uh, April past made us 3 years consistently, every Wednesday evening, bringing you different guests, coverage of different issues, highlighting stuff that is occurring that you might be interested in. And we thank you, our regular listeners who catch us whether on the live or on the repeat. But we are here to serve you and to do everything we can to flesh out the true substance of these issues. Lots of things going on in the world, and even in our little Belize. Outside, we know that the U.S. is gearing up to be involved in what promises to be a prolonged conflict with the Republic of Iran. Iran last week, after the Israelis attacked and killed a couple of their high ranking people, retaliated and has set the Israeli capital on fire. Actually, some of the pictures coming out, and and again, nobody likes to see this type of devastation. It's a waste of money and a waste of lives, and it's going on for what? Simply ego. I would be disappointed and surprised if the American people will allow Donald Trump to take them into another war. Um, the Iraq war was a travesty built on lies. Colin Powell, I don't know if you want to rest his soul because he did a lot to cause that and to encourage people to encourage an invasion that turns out based upon nothing, no evidence. All the evidence he said he had, I can distinctly remember him showing us on screen. There are the trucks moving with all the weapons, Babs, and nothing, not an iota of anything was found. Now they are saying that Iran is close to developing a nuclear weapon, though Iran has complied with every request by the international community for inspections. What we do know is that the Israelis have nuclear weapons and they have proven that they will use whatever weapons they have to aggress even people who have no wherewithal to defend themselves. Joe, I see you over there in a corner, but I'm not seeing you because your camera. Hi, Susan. Welcome to the show.
Good night, G. Michael. Thank you.
Yeah. Joe. All right. There you go. Play with the camera for a little bit. I had to be doing that myself. Actually, it is being blocked off by something on the upper side. Yeah, you got there's something above on the top of the camera that's blocking it. Make us see if you go get that. All right, there you go. All right, you're a technician, man. You got a school for that now.
No, I'm a techno peasant.
Anyway, welcome to the show. Welcome back. As a matter of fact, you were away on vacation. I hear protesting in the streets of Los Angeles. I think I see it on Belize flag. Was that you? Uh,
No, I didn't
so-
have the Belize flag. I decided to use the American flag.
oh, all right. That's safe. That is safer. Um, they're they're continuing that campaign over there. They had some. Was that in the area that you're in the rioting and
Well,
things?
not immediately. It was more up in Paramount. Maybe
Okay,
about 20 minutes there about.
going towards Hollywood area then, no?
Yeah, yeah. That is where the concentration was at that time.
Yeah.
They begin to spread.
What are your thoughts on what's happening over there with the deportation and all the problems they're facing surrounding that?
Um, One thing that is coming out clear to me now is that I believe that the American people generally have come to the conclusion that they need to take a stand. And evidently, most of what Trump has done and what has gone before the court, he has lost almost every case. It is true that once they are appealing, then the decision of the trial judge is held in suspension. But it is showing clearly where he's trying to be above the law then. And one of the conflicts some people are recognizing now is that when this Supreme Court actually gone and what they thought was a mistake to really make the president of the United States somewhat above the law while he's performing his official duties. And again, that is why they are saying no king, no monarchy. That was the slogan. No king. Because they believed that they were fighting against the monarchy for their independence, against a king. And they believe that Trump now is trying to behave like a king. So I think in essence, you had like 8,000 on the day of the parade, which was his birthday, the military parade. There were 8,000 different groups throughout America that
Yeah.
was protesting.
Yeah.
So I would say the civil disobedience, as they have been encouraged by their leaders, is quite okay. In other words, you have the right to protest. It's your First Amendment right. But you need to do it peacefully. So do not engage in any illegal practices, and they are asking them not to. So I am beginning to see now where indeed there is still hope for that beacon of democracy in America.
I don't know. A lot of people listened, and many of the marches were peaceful, but Los Angeles is a special type of protesters they have there. They were wrecking police vehicles and getting ready to go all out crazy. Um, I don't know if it's because maybe sometimes you do have to get their attention, but at the end of the day, I don't know if it doesn't detract away from the point you're trying to make. No.
Well, it depends on which side you are on. If you are with Goebbels, who was a master in propaganda, evidently, you can take a grain of truth, dramatize it, and to do off the good. So if you look at the percentage, the few that were in fact acting illegally, damaging, pillaging, and burning, if you had 100, you had plenty. But when you talk about thousands of people protesting,
Mm-hmm.
100 people is small. But if you are pro-Trump, you will take that grain of truth. And if you're a good Goebbels, you can dramatize it, and you have your MAGA supporters believing it is true.
Well,
Mhm.
yeah, they own the media. They have the mainstream media, so everything that comes on there is controlled, and they know they're doing it especially for that. They're catering to a base that seems willing to accept whatever they spoon feed them and swallow it whole.
Well,
Which
Mr.
is
Chairman, sorry to interrupt you, but you
no.
brought out a point just now that I think is important for us again. We had always seen the media as a bulwark, like the court of democracy.
The fourth estate.
Right, but unfortunately, the media now is very divided, and they are governed by know who their owners are. So if you take Fox News will give you the MAGA side. You go to MSNBC, you may get the pro side of the vote. Let's call it the left. Then maybe in between, like CNN, you may get a more sentiment.
CNN?
No, no,
Are
hold
you real?
no, no, hold on. I'm just giving examples saying that for me,
But CNN worse than MSNBC. They're basically along the same line.
right.
So I can see you saying Fox is on one side,
Yeah,
MSNBC and CNN on the other side.
not
Uh,
necessarily. Not necessarily. What I wanted to point out is that,
well, that's perception, Mr. Goebbels.
yeah, what happened is this that
Mhm.
you have Fox, you have NSNBC, you have CNN, but you have many in between, except that in Belize, we are looking at maybe three, four. But when you are in the United States, there are so many you can look at. So
Well,
I think,
basically,
yeah,
basically in Belize, we're looking at two, Channel 5 and Channel 7. And I was thinking it's interesting because Channel 5 has put Channel 7 on its toes. Because I used to watch Channel 5 first, catch the headlines, then switch over to 7 because they were usually late. Channel 5 has tightened up its presentation, looks better. They come on sharp 6, and now I find that 7 is making sure they're either 5, 6, or maybe a minute before. So it's kind of tough because they're coming on at the same time. But yeah, I believe in Belize we have two main. We have the other stations giving news, Love FM and the radio stations and whatnot. But I would say the two main ones would be still 5 and 7, no?
right. But what I wanted to do was to highlight not the local media, but the foreign media in Belize.
Mm-hmm.
I go to both homes, and you've been watching either MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News.
Okay.
That's the point I wanted to make. That so in
Yeah.
Belize,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
we are limited to like when we're on time, we are like no cops.
All
Yeah.
right.
So
I
now
feel
what is
I
happening to us
mhm.
if we are not a discernible type people, sufficiently knowledgeable, and we tend to be gullible, you will be influenced by them because, of course, they are expert in propaganda, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what I would say we need to caution ourselves about. And you go to America right now. I visited many families in America, and you can sense the bias then.
It really depends on what station you're looking at. Yes, you're right.
I was talking to a person from down in Louisiana last. Now, I would have expected that from Louisiana and where she came from, she would have been obviously anti-Trump. But unfortunately, she said that she don't support Trump. And of course, we had a conversation. But then I realized that you cannot really go too far in discussions with people who are limited in terms of wanting to understand how they are being governed. So you find that, for example, the person said, man, he said, I voted for this man. When he voted for a governor, the governor that he said he voted for was not even the state where he lived. But if he just like that person, and I might know, he tell you, he never voted for him, he couldn't. So I show you the good ability to, they ask the person, you have a choice. We're going to pay you to visit any part of the United States. Now, where would you like to go? He says she would like to go to Australia.
Any part of the United States, yeah. But yeah, not everybody informed, and let's understand that. And America likes to think they boast themselves as the best nation in the world and the brightest nation. And there are many Americans who will leave you disappointed once you have a deep conversation with them. No,
Very true.
but there are some bright people in every society, of course.
Yeah.
So Susan, you were getting ready to make a point there.
Yeah, I was just gonna join in on this. Usually with CNN, like whenever there is a big major news going on, I would skip all the other news and go see what CNN is saying, and that's usually more trustworthy. So the most media that I could get in the United States right now.
I don't know. I find that CNN is really but one thing, they're anti-Trump, so anybody who doesn't like Trump will like CNN. Fox is pro-Trump. Anybody who likes Trump will like Fox. MSNBC is also pro-Trump, and in fact, they have some rabid, anti-Trump, and some rabid anti-Trumpers on there. I think this girl Rachel Maddow is on there, right? So I don't trust CNN either. I try to watch all of them. And I do find myself going to facts sometimes just to compare with what CNN is saying, and it's amazing because it's drastic the difference in how they present the news. You know, the spin that they put on it, and you could see there's a spin, and you can see where anybody that watches only one as opposed to the other one would come away with a skewed point of view, and it's unfortunate. Susan, do you think that the U.S. is going to join in this war with Iran?
I think they already been in the war. I think that it's just gonna be maybe mobilized a little bit more now. We're gonna see it now, but they've been funding the war. They've been having people. They've been having intelligence on the ground. They've been in partnership with Israel.
It's their weapons that are being used anyway.
Yeah, so it's just I think now we might see a more mobilization of stuff, but
More outward involvement. Joe, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think we all accept, I should, that Israel is a surrogate of the U.S. in the Middle East.
Or vice versa?
No, I
So
think,
one wonders who's the dog and which is the tail.
no, it's clearly to me that you say Netanyahu have to hold on to power. As he loses power, he'll go to trial and he may go to jail.
Right.
No, Netanyahu is the kind of person who, not any president, American president, will stomach him. But the thing with it is that the United States need Israel.
For what, Joe? For what?
Because Israel is the person that is representing them in that part of the world. So
Yeah. But so they need them for what?
they need them because the United States need those who we consider to be his allies among those who we consider to be his enemies. So when you're looking at era, Israel is the strongest, and it is strongest because of the United States. Because the United States has sponsored Israel and is sponsoring Israel.
Yeah. But what does Israel do for the United States? Why they're so indebted to them?
I think a lot of the financial institutions are owned by Israeli people.
So the Jewish lobby basically is what is doing that. Yeah, the monies of the whole world actually is controlled by the Rothschilds and the rest of the Jews, the multi-billionaires and whatnot. So, and we know that. And this has been a spark that has spurred a lot of opposition towards the Jewish people, really, because of their quest for money, their insatiable thirst for money. And don't you think, Joe, that there's something to that?
But I would like to go back to the period when we had a multipolar world, which was just after the war. You had, of course, Russia, the U.S., and the United States. Those were three allies.
Russia, hold up. The U.S. and Russia.
Yeah, they fought the Second World
Who,
War.
who three? Russia, who else?
The United States and the UK.
Oh, and the UK, correct.
Main allies.
Yeah, right.
It's true that when they reached Germany, they decided that the Russians will come up to the Berlin, and then the Allies will come just before. So after the war, the Allies, the UK and the US gave up their part, and they became independent. The Russians held on until eventually in the 80s thereabout, they gave up unless you had a united Germany. Then the Cold War started. When you are in a Cold War, which will always be, and especially when we were multipolar, till we're gone bipolar, now we became almost unipolar, then we're going back to do a polar again. They will have to have surrogates. They do have surrogates. All of them fight for surrogates in every part of the world. They look for their surrogates in Africa, they look for their surrogates in Asia, in the Middle East, in Latin America, because those are the people who they want to give support to defend their ideology, their philosophy, their way of life. That's the world. So in the Middle East, the Israelis, evidently, for reasons that history have told us, they are very hard working people. They are money makers. Very much money makers.
So that's not necessarily hard working.
Yes.
They like money. They make money.
Yeah, but they make it from hard work. They do.
You
Don't.
think?
Yeah, these people. Like, I do not support. There was a time when I favored
You
it.
know, you know who works hard, Joe? Those immigrant workers in those fields picking strawberries and stuff
Of
like
course.
that.
No,
You
they
sitting
are.
down in an office counting money is not necessarily hard work.
Well, I don't mean hard work in the literal sense of manual. I just mean,
Right.
yeah,
Entrepreneur wise.
yeah, these people will work 12, 14 hours.
Yeah.
That's so the way they are. That's the way they are. Now, the point I wanted to make, coming back again to what we were talking, is that when you look at the world as it is today, it is now China that is slated to become more powerful than the United States. But then India is so close behind. If you look in the US right now, the highest paid people in the United States are the Asiatic people. They're getting more pay than the whites. Now, the whites get more pay than the blacks. But the Asiatic people are the highest paid people in the United States. Most of the laboratories, all of them, most of them are run by Indians who go
Tech,
and train. That's right.
the tech companies.
That's right. They are mostly Indians. They get them from India.
So, all right. So now you have though, and we're talking about China taking over from the U.S. You have the BRICS countries, which include China, Russia,
That's right.
and India.
That's
So, if we're looking now, then because if America gets in there with Iran, Iran has been big trading partners with all of these BRIC countries. In fact, they've one of the big problem might be because they have shifted from the Western trading partners to the BRICS people. So you might be looking at indeed a world war because if America gets in, some of these other countries invariably will get in. I was reading somewhere today where they increased the amount of weapons and stuff going to Iran from Russia and China has increased exponentially. So we might be looking at a problem.
very true. And a matter of fact, if you look at the BRICS combined, I think they are slightly ahead of the US now. I think it's 37, 34, which is telling you the BRICS are gaining. And with China in it, I mean, America, what Trump is doing is accelerating the dominance of China.
And painting himself in a corner.
That's right.
He's painting the U.S. in a corner, making enemies as opposed to friends.
Well, the saying is going now. He said we're going to make, but we're going to make America first, not just make America great. He's not making America first. He's looking to make America last because he's isolating these countries and putting them in favor of China.
But it seems like the American people are seeing it.
That's right.
And that might be because a lot of the protests that are happening are not necessarily only because of the immigration thing, but many of issues that they're upset with. But when you look at the number of people out there protesting against Trump, the question has to be asked, how the hell did Trump win that election then?
Right.
And there are people who are saying that there might have been some skullduggery involved.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I saw some polling 2 days, I think, ago or so. You know what is the number one issue? And I think you pointed it out just so. It's not immigration. The number one issue among the polling, the economy. Because when you make that move to put out those workers, in the United States, an American farm worker will be paid up to $17 an hour. An immigrant that is there make $5 and odd cents an hour. A Mexican worker in the Mexico make $2 and odd cents. So the immigrant farm worker is getting just about 33% of what the born American farm worker gets. So when they made the move, Trump can tamper with them billionaire. The rich people going against him. Because you tamper with the bread and butter. You know how much he can cost. That's why he had to back off. He had to back off. Trump never made it think that the amount of workers where they keep these friends where you have wealthy is because of the low wages they are paying the immigrants.
But if Trump can't figure this out, certainly there are people around him who can, because many believe he practically does what they tell him to do. He doesn't seem to be bright enough to do anything on his own, actually. Am I reading that wrong, or do you think that he's brighter than people think he is?
No, I think you are reading it right. They compare what it was in his administration before. And yes, he had many within his administration. was supporting him. But this time around, far more members of that White House are loyal to Trump, far more than before. And there lies the danger with Trump, because it's not Trump alone. All of these people, you see what Elon Musk had to back off? Because Elon Musk makes his wealth from the US government. He was getting big contracts, and that was exposed. So when he got out of Trump threatened him back, and he back off. I know he'll make friendship back.
Are they,
Because,
are they mending fences? Those two, are they?
yeah, like it. Find
We
way,
hope.
find way rich. Trump accused her as if though, well, he just believe the people. Elon Musk around and tell him I'm a part of the Epstein group. You know that thing with Epstein, when he killed himself in a prison. Remember, he made a carry out some kind of
Yeah.
Ring.
So look how far they gone then, bam. I think must realize, something, he's a billionaire. But remember, Trump got political power right now.
Well, two of them, I believe, has dirt on the other, and they realize, hold on, if we let this out,
Exactly.
nobody will win this.
That's right.
So, that a sad situation, and we can only hope that something happens, because this it will affect everybody. I mean, in particular, a small economy like ours, and that will bring me home, because I was looking at the news about the sugarcane industry, where they're still not apparently settled there on matters, and where they're saying that the sugar content is the lowest it's been in years, and they're not they and they're not seeing the volume of produce that used to come up. Yeah, have you followed any of that, Joe?
Yeah, I think the sugar's content is going down, which is bad. I think the ratio before was 10-1. I think it was 10. Mean for every 10 tons, you may get a ton of sugar.
Right.
So the higher the sucrose content, the higher the ratio.
And everybody get more money.
Right, but when that sucrose content goes down, when you the mill 1 million tons, my brother, you used to get, if you build 1 million, you get 100,000, you get 110. But when that sucrose content goes down, and you the mill 1 million tons, and you only they get maybe 70, 80,000 tons, that's a big loss for the company. And then what happened? Because the way you pay the farmers is through what they call a 60-40 ratio. But it's based on a formula where they come to the profit under international standard. Then they adjust the profit. And through the adjustment, they charge it 40-60. So evidently, they cannot continue. This could be, you see what happened to us again. Belize is a highly vulnerable country. The economic structure makes it highly vulnerable to international shocks, especially coming from North America. And most of our product, for example, tourism, 40% of our GDP comes from tourism. But the majority of our tourism comes from the United States. So if America goes into a recession, if it goes now, it won't be too bad for us. But if it goes when the season begins, that will hurt Belize bad. But despite that, agriculture, which is highly vulnerable again in the raw state, again will hurt us. So we would hope that this recession doesn't come through, but it looks it's on the way to recession.
And one of the major sugarcane are one of the major industries, but it's left standing. What happened to citrus? Do you have any update on the citrus industry, or is that doing?
Well, from the last report, it has not been doing too well. Remember, they had the problem first with the disease.
Greening, yeah.
Then they begin to have some organizational problems. You see, the citrus industry, you had hundreds of small farmers. Small. The bigger farmers from way back were trying to say, listen, we need to bring them together. We used to work for them. We used to do the audit for the citrus company, for the group now. Mm-hmm. And they were advised from then that you cannot continue. The economies of scale doesn't go in favor of these lot of small farmers. So they were hit first by the disease. But then, when you have these hundreds of small farmers that scattered over the place, it's difficult. So you have to, again, reorganize that. So you got the disease and you got the organizational problem they're facing. So citrus is not showing up too good for us right now.
Not doing good at all. Now, let us talk about tourism, because I was watching a report on the news where the unions are protesting at the airport. Now, I don't know, should we be getting these the tourists involved in our local problems as such? Can they help us? And I heard one comment by the union leader that said he referred to the Brazilian administration as what are the term he used, as oppressive, and I'm saying I don't know if it's not reaching a bit too far with that, and is that going to do their cause any good, because they're looking now to launch industrial action. They're in their 21-day period, and they seem very serious about it. Have you been up
Which,
on that?
which one you're referring to just now?
At the international airport.
Right.
No,
They
I'm
were at the airport, and
not up on that one.
yeah,
Go ahead,
they
tell us.
all day all day today they were protesting up there, and they were marching and whatnot, and the president parked his car and they put a boot on it, and then he said, no, I just came to pick up somebody, but all the other union members were up there in full regalia, marching around and making comments to the tourists as they come in, because they say they're also protesting a high departure fee. So I don't know if they're not mixing up these issues, because we hear from one thing to the other, and first it was salaries, now it's other things.
Mr. Chairman, which union is this?
This is the Public Service Union.
Or the PSU?
Right.
All right. What is it they say they are protesting against? What?
I think work conditions,
correct.
pay, stuff like that.
Union, I mean, what the thing there, pensions, something about pensions also. There are a number of issues to the point where it's hard to keep track of where
Yes.
they're going with it.
But to me, if it's the PSU, I can speak more on it. I think that the government has made some good offers to them.
I think the government made one critical error and should have walked back on that raise to those CEOs, because that has opened a floodgate of protests and other problems. Let me see what Melvin Diego is saying. Did Trump instigate the war before? Is this because they want Iran's assets? China and Taiwan wants their money in cash because of the tariff. He wants to step break into Burkina Faso. Now that's interesting. This leader over there in Africa, what's his name? The leader of Burkina Faso. Anyway, Ibrahim Traore. Has been making some moves there, apparently, and his people love it. And Africa is looking to him as a leader. I understand they've tried to assassinate him a few times. Is what they're doing there a part of controlling Africa? And this might be what this young man is saying. They're right at the tip of Africa, of course.
Well, I'd like to comment on that, but I want to come back after, if you don't mind.
We will come back, because I want to go local. Yeah,
I'm glad that this issue is a good risk, because I listened to that guy. I can't pronounce the name, Abraham, something like that.
Traore, yeah.
I listened to him, and he actually made Trump look like a little boy. I'm telling you, that boy is brilliant.
He's bright.
He's not a boy, but I mean out of affection.
He's bright.
He's brilliant. But I listened to him, and he's talking sense.
And everybody is listening to him. This is the problem they have with him.
The world is beginning to listen to him.
Yeah.
The man is a brilliant man. He's making them to understand clearly what you all have done to Africa, what you have done to us.
And he's for the people.
So succinctly, so eloquently, and so persuasive. And he put Trump in a place, because Trump can be little. And when he turned back at Trump, when he tried to put Trump in a place at the UN, Trump was looking bad.
Yeah. Well, he's been looking bad on a number of occasions, unfortunately, poor fellow.
If you saw that one for me was impressive. That guy really make Trump look like a little boy.
Yeah, but I hope he survives because you know what? As bright as he is and as good as he is, they find ways, man. These world leaders, in particular the European leaders, they're vicious and have not relented at all. Times have moved on and we've come into a new way of life, but they remain that same vicious, ruthless type of uh, uh, um, aggressive leaders. No, let's see how that plays out.
I would like to come back to that, but I'll ask you to just let me make a comment on the issue with Belize and the union.
Yeah,
The union, evidently, from what I heard, and you could correct me, wanted an 8.5% increase, and they wanted
right.
it now. They want back their increments, and they want it now. Then it seems now that they don't want the pension to be phased out as the government is proposing. Those things to me seems to be the three main issues. There might be other things under the bargaining agreement now. But let's look at it this way. The government is saying that, okay, we will give you the 8.5%, but we cannot give you the 8.5 down. We will give you 4%. I think it's 4 by October the 1st, 25. And the other 4.5 we will phase in over 2 years. But they put some conditions too, which I think makes sense. So I would say that to me is a reasonable proposal.
But the unions are saying we've heard this all before.
But they are
And
saying this is what we are offering now. If you accept it, we sign.
yeah, but then they don't want to accept it because these promises have been made before and have been broken every time.
No, this promise was never made and was never broken. I mean, it
Well,
was
what promise?
no.
It's not that it was made and they've heard promises like these before. Not this particular promise, Joe.
Let me say this, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I was a public officer for 20 years, and I said, I keep repeating it. Neither government, the PUP nor the UDP, have ever signed an agreement with the union and never lived up to it. They had to. Otherwise, that would have gone to the court. So they have to. A promise not signed.
Joe.
Tell me.
They have never made an agreement and broken it with the unions.
Name me one. I
Well,
don't know any they have ever broken. If
they
they
have
do,
been the unions have marched on a number of occasions because of that.
no,
I don't have any particular
no, I know for
details on it.
no, they had never marched because of if you violate that agreement, you go to the court and the government will be in trouble. No, if I make a promise, well, when you come down to sign, I didn't. Oh, that's different. But the minute you sign that bargaining agreement, that's a law. You have to carry it out. So to say that the government is promising you 4% by the 1st of October, and is promising you the other 4.5 over the next 2 years, what is happening, I understand, and I'm being honest from what I'm hearing. There's a thing called misinformation or disinformation, and sometimes misunderstanding. Apparently, some groups decided it looked like they never understand what was being offered. If you say, I want the 8.5, no. All right. That's a difference between what you want and what the government is offering. So negotiation will continue. The government either compromise further, or it goes their way, or they compromise further, or they go that way. You made a very important point, and that was a bad strategic move of the government. Yes, it will cost them about 278,000 a year. But it's not the 278,000, which the Prime Minister, I think, made a serious error. To compare the 278,000 given to CEOs, while it's 58 million for the public officers, it's not the money. The point is, why did you give those CEOs increase?
At this point, if you can't afford everything else, you can't afford that.
Chairman, ask them to look at the job description and job profile for the CEOs and see if they even what they were getting. So to me, the union had a good point in that. They did.
I think they should have stuck with that point initially, and then later on come with their demands for. Now, is that 8%? What
0.5%.
Yes,
is
fine.
that a raise they're asking for, or is that something that they should have gotten increments that they weren't given before? Because
No,
that was the understanding I got.
No, that's not separate from the increment. I want to come to the increment next. That is separate. That is the increase.
In salary.
Right. No.
Now, is that fair though? Is that reasonable at this point? Because listen, I know they could say if you're gonna get a CEO that raise, you're gonna give we with money. But all right, is it 8.5 to all of those public service members there? Can rack up to a lot of money indeed. If they're saying 50 million, I could see it.
All right, ask yourself the question, because we are the people paying the bill. The politicians are not paying the bill, except that
Correct.
as a consumer they pay. You have your own business. You're the owner of this business, and you have your workers. And the workers they say they want to raise up pay.
Mhm.
You have a better position. And I again, like I say, I did that because I worked for the unions and employers before because of the financials. So you could sit around the table and say, all right, let's look at the audited financials. The employer they say, see, this is all we make. The workers they say, yeah, that's all you make. But when I gone through this with the accountant, he tell me that some of them things you never had to expend because some of them things have a personal use.
Interesting.
So the union could argue then and say, but wait, man, these are not part of the expenditure for earning the profit. You see, the union will argue on the basis of the profit. If you make more, it's only fair that the workers have to be given more. I thought enough capital that the main factor of production. Capital can only be manipulated by the workers. So workers in a better position to evaluate. They'll come to the public service as a welfare-oriented institution. How do you determine what is a reasonable salary for public officers? Some will want to say, as they did, and that is where the government made that not a terrible mistake. You know what they did, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Susan? They said that they looked at the CEOs in the private sector, and when you look at what they get, that is a different type of CEO,
Yeah.
totally different. In fact, the CEOs in the government, no disrespect to any of them, with their masters and their bachelors. What is the job profile and the job description? Let us look at that. Then we want to see what they want. So I think that the government did not move strategically. I would not have tampered with that.
Yeah.
Finish with them workers first.
I don't know, though it seems all of this happened when Chester went from chief of police to CEO. And apparently, if he had gotten paid at a CEO salary, would have been less than what he was making as a commissioner of police. And it seems that the raise was to bring his, but they couldn't bring his up without bringing everybody else up. Did you see that part of it? Is there any?
Part of it that I saw, and that not only applied to the commissioner, he applied to all of them. Then they double dip. You will get your pension because now you are out. Then you're going back and you want to get salary. You the double dip, man. If you take one public officer, whether the commissioner, police, whether the controller, custom, whoever it is, he get pension and you take him back. He did double dip.
But more than that, he also has a business.
Well, all right. They have a right to that. That's a constitutional right. The
But
point
that-
my concern is that I did deal with the public purse. I did pay that money. That me and you and we did pay that money. You have to be careful how you are taking these heads of departments, retire them and give them pension and take them back and pay them as CEOs. When you have a lot of other people out here who want those jobs. So I'm not against Pesta per se for that. It's that the government has to be careful. So that is one. The other one I want to come back to, which I think the union should have held on to. The union was saying that it was not an increase in salary they was asking for. And that was a good point. He said what they were asking for is an adjustment. Now, that is a good argument because you can more determine the amount for an adjustment because the adjustment is based on the consumer price index. So if over one period, you may have, and I just throw a figure, let's say you have an inflation rate over the period of 10%, but I didn't get any raise. It means my purchasing power gone down. So what unions do, they have a clause that they put into the agreement, which these unions should learn to do. They have what you call a CPI clause. In the bargaining agreement, they have a clause that if the CPI, the consumer price index, for 2 consecutive years increases, in the third year, you have to realign the income, which is not a salary increase. It's just to keep them purchasing power where it is. The salary increase now will take you beyond that. So the union, I think, should have held on that we are fighting for an adjustment. Then with the adjustment, you could go to the consumer price index because we know what it is. We know what it is. But
Well,
then,
we come back to what you were saying about the language that you use, whether you could Google's it or whether you come full front with what you're trying to achieve. Maybe their approach was wrong. Maybe that you're absolutely right. Instead of saying, well, we want to raise, which people look at that and say, well, I mean, really, can you afford it? Or the adjustment that you're speaking of. I mean, basically, it might work out to be the same thing, but just the language might be different and more acceptable.
that's one. The second one now that I want to highlight is the increment. Now, I don't know why the government is encouraging public officers to believe that increment is an entitlement. An increment is not an entitlement until we know the right and they change it. An increment comes on the basis of your performance. Every year, public officers had to be vetted by their supervisors. And based on their performance, they will get an increment. If the performance didn't measure up, they don't get. So to me, they were mixing up things, and the government should have. I listened to Chris Coy this morning. I thought he was very good in trying to explain. And he admitted, he said some of this thing is misinformation or disinformation. He said because some of these things are said are not true, and I agree with him. So I would say that the increment, if I were the government, I would not allow increment to be given automatically. Because your increments, instead of giving that, you could only give the adjustment for the inflation. And your increment must remain based on your performance. So again, they are having some difference over the increment.
I saw a story tonight, though, that brings that into question because there's one guy who's an accountant, and you might notice he was the I believe he was the chief accountant at one time, but he was saying that he only goes to work and sign in, and goes back home. But he has not had an increment because he doesn't make the grade. He says at 8 he would have gotten his increment, but they gave him a 5, and then later on a 3. A 5 is below, a 3 is failing. He was trying to explain. I don't know if you understand the bar that he was referring to, but this guy, and I did. There's 2 of them actually, and I know one girl named Dorette something, an interesting last name, and the guy, and you must know him, but apparently they didn't sign some ethic agreement, an ethics statement that they were supposed to sign in 2015, and because they felt that it was not applicable to our system of government, and they had adopted from some other country. You're not familiar with that story?
No, I'm not familiar with that, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
I wish it came on tonight too, because they were doing some protesting out there also. It seems like a lot of people are coming together under this one umbrella of protests that the unions are leading, including the vital workers, vital services and whatnot, hospital workers, etc. And what they're heading to, the danger, because and I heard the PSU leader is saying today that these people will also be joining in on the strike, and they can. But as far as you know, can they do that? If these services, these vital services, and such essential services, can they really strike?
No, by law, the essential services shouldn't. But I think
I think they can. I think they can strike. I think if they do have the power to have a peaceful protest.
Or a slow down, at least I go slow, no?
Yeah, or
yeah, you have to go back to the law. There's a law for essential services, which in essence is saying that they cannot just strike like the other workers. They have a process different. So the essential workers, but the concern should be, I think the government has to begin to. I can't really. I haven't sit around the table with any of them, on behalf of any of them. But what I'm sensing now, they are beginning. A fire is lit there, another fire is lit there.
Yeah.
These fires now are beginning to come together, and it could cause a big fire. And somebody mentioned it this morning on the same show that Chris Coy was on, the senator. And he's saying that you're having something at the port, I think, then you have at the airport, then you have at Carl Hushner, and then you have here, then you have the union, then you have the teachers, the PSU. So it's like about to create a configuration of a large fire.
Who is the minister? Who is the minister that deals with all of that?
It's the Minister of Finance.
So the Prime Minister himself, then.
Right. Well, what he does, because he is dealing with the finance, but the Minister of the Public Service, but what they do, they normally will appoint a group, which they do in this case. There are about 3 or 4 ministers that sit and have negotiations with the unions.
Because they'll be spread rather thin trying to out all those fires at the same time, don't you think?
Well, the one that I had with the Carl Hushner, I would want to I should maybe call one of the ministers, maybe the Prime Minister himself. Because what is happening there, something went wrong, and I want to tell you why. Remember Carl Hushner, before he became Carl Hushner as a statutory body, was a part of mainstream government. He was part of the central government.
Mm-hmm.
When I was Minister of Health with the Inter-American Development Bank that was financing the health sector reform, we wanted to pilot the project. So it was decided that Carl Hushner will be made a statutory body, and we'll use the central region, which Carl Hushner is in, and supposed to be the National Referral Hospital. And we'll create a statutory board. And then we're going to pilot it and eventually bring all the 4 regions under that statutory board. But the workers, and remember, I was Minister of the Public Service, but I was also Minister of Health. And I argued to the cabinet that all these workers coming over must be given the same terms and conditions for their pension like the central government workers. And that was agreed to. And if I remember well, it was passed. I am hearing now that the workers are complaining because they are not given the same pensions like the central government, when in fact they should have. Because all you do with them, you take them from the central and you put them where you call on the periphery through statutory boards. So to me, they have a case there, and I think they need to address it. Mm-hmm. You cannot have one group of workers simply because they command another agency of government, another type of agency, which they are looking to do with the tax department. They are looking to give it a semi-autonomous body. But when you do these things, you have to look at the commonality like pension, but not make it a non-contributory, which is what, again, one of the things the government offered, to stop the non-contributory, but they are phase it in and they bring one grandfather clause that it is only the new workers coming on board will be facing the full change. But those that are there will be phased out. And that you're beginning to have which I agree, you should have a contributory pension, not a non-contributory. So
now, you've been there, Joe. I've heard the term second term jitters. And that, in fact, usually when you see a government enter a second term, they get arrogant. The workers tend to be more demanding. In particular, those who are cronies of that particular government. You see anything happening there that might be as a consequence of this, a result of this second term?
Well, my style of leadership may be different from others. But as a leader, as I was, I always believe in this. I will do what I think is right, but I will not do it just because Joe Coy thinks it is right. I will consult with the people who I believe can help me in making that decision. As a leader, when I arrive at that decision, that's where I'm going. Now, if it means we have to maybe turn over the apple cart, we will turn it over.
Or step on a few toes.
If you have to step on a few toes, you will step on them. Mm-hmm. I feel that the government is missing an opportunity from the first term. You need to right-size the public sector. Right-size, not suggesting you downsize, but it's not what it will be. But you say downsize, and the term Esquivel going to use, I mean, kind of offensive to workers. You're the right size for institution. You're to try to find the right size for it. I know it's too big. It's bloated up. And the gentleman mentioned it in the news this morning. We are paying too much. More than 50 cents out of every dollar, 60 cents of every dollar is going to paying
The wage bill.
That's right. And what is happening, ladies and gentlemen? They have what they call transfer.
Mhm.
Those transfers are in the budget, but they also are paying for workers, which you will not see in payrolls, as in the case of through the public service. So again, you are bringing in people, and the term they use is open vote, which
Mm.
means it's a fixed term contract. And that to me is growing up. It's growing it up. And when you begin to bring in more because of loyalty to a party, you know they get qualified people. It's not likely you won't get them. You're getting people for their loyalty to your party.
Tell me,
The leadership is not as good when it's like that.
when you do this downsize or right size, as you put it, what do you do with those that you have to let go? Because you'll have to let some people go.
What we had suggested when I was heading the reform for the region, the whole CARICOM country, I was one of them who headed the reform for all the CARICOM countries. The decision was that we were not going to retrench as SKPL did. He was right, but I think he was a bit callous the way he did it. Because he did it 900 workers just before Christmas. That looked like yes. So what we're going to do, we want to phase it. Let's say we have to get rid of 2,000 workers. We don't want to just let them go unless they were ghost workers. Then you have to go. Because you're not working and getting paid, which may be happening right now. And they think the auditor general had found out some of that before. Now, if that is the amount that is in fact working, and they are not bad workers, the thing is that we have too many. So what you do, you phase it, meaning that you will not be taking any new workers in. Let's say you need 10,000 workers, but you got 14,000. Out of that 14, you will get rid of 1,000 right away because they don't make the work anyhow. The other three, you will keep paying them. And when you need new workers, you bring them into the permanent. So as those who are going off and pension, these ones will come in. And eventually you'll get your 10,000. We don't
Yeah,
want to
I
return.
I hear you, but what happens to those? Because you have to, you can't just make your unemployment numbers go up like that drastically. I mean, what do you do? I mean, how do you create new employment opportunities for them? Something has to happen,
Yeah,
don't you
but
think?
but again, simultaneously with that, you would expect when a government is, you see, there are mistakes made by two sides. We brought up the public sector. No, we can't just sit back and they say, PUP, that you did. You got to get no way. We got to do it. No, we got to do it, and we got to do it in a very humane way. We got to do it in a very efficient and effective and economical way.
Mhm.
Now, once a government is having a plan how to grow an economy, in the growth, the workers can be observed in the private sector. Today, I can tell you this. Today, I experience it with a contractor, and it's happening quite often. It's difficult to find workers today.
Yeah.
You, a man working in the construction field, building, you get $60. The lowest paid, which is just a laborer, right? One manual worker, gets $60 a day. He goes up the scale and he could lay blocks good. He could do some mason work. He go up to $70, $80. Then you got the other one, which is more like a supervisor, but in the trench too, and he may get 90. Then you got the next one, right at the top of all of them, and he get 115 to 125. Now the contractor, he want to know and then in a long sleeve shirt, dress up nice, and he hand in a pocket and he look on to make sure they are complying with the architecture and engineering and the plan. But he can get the bulk of the money, kind of
Right.
investment. So today, I know for a fact, I check with many of the contractors in Belize City. 2 jobs had to close down this week because they couldn't get the workers, and they got some workers. They worked for 5 days and they didn't come back. And one of them said to me, I tell him, boy, well, you can't expect the government to do it. He wanted the government make them stop sell rum. He said because of the bad man, they messed them up. He
Hmm.
said 2 million drinking the thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you
I,
Father's Day, they say well, a lot of them don't come the Monday because they will spend Father's Day with the bad man.
hmm.
To have a hangover.
Our sad state of affairs,
Yeah.
and you're absolutely right. Because a number of contractors have told me have come to me as they want to work. They want workers,
That's
and
right.
but somebody was saying that the call centers are paying them more than they would make with physical labor and easier job. So that might be a part of the problem. It's a part of the solution because you're creating jobs, but then you're taking away from that, like for the construction and whatnot. Somebody was asking me earlier if I knew somebody could lay some blocks. Cause he can't find nobody for lay blocks.
Yeah,
It's
but our shortage of labor is not because of a shortage of manpower. Manpower meaning human power, woman or man.
mhm.
It's a shortage of a cultural problem, I think, that is beginning to find its way into the deeper part of the society.
We
Where
don't want to work hard. We don't want to work hard again.
I
And,
will
and
want to
there
do
is alcoholism too
that. Right.
strongly within our community.
It
I do
is
want to mention that the
an
citrus
increase.
part of one of
Mhm.
the citrus company industry problem is was having skilled citrus farmers who can care for the groves. That was one of the
Pick
issues
oranges
that
and
they
whatnot.
had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If we don't import workers, which we do, the government allows them to come in, we give them the permits,
Right.
they can come across, they do their work, and they go back. If you don't have them, you cannot. You won't have a citrus farms.
But this is the same problem with America they face. They don't want them, but they need them for like pick the strawberries and whatever in the fields.
That's
So they
right.
want they want quadri, and they don't know how to get out of it. They want tough situation. Make we move on to something else, Joe. And this is one topic that you might know a little something about. There's a 13th Amendment being proposed, and I saw an advertisement today where they were inviting people to write in and to protest if they want to or give their views on it. What are the situation with this 13th Amendment and how far along is it?
I myself would need to follow it further, but I know the concept. I understand what they are trying to do. You have the state of emergency,
Right.
and you have the law governing the state of emergency. Now, when you're going to put in effect a state of emergency, you need what you call a statutory instrument, which is like a subsidiary law. So you got a parent act that the constitutions allow you to do this, but it's not in effect, but the law is there. So the government decide that, listen, we have to put on 3 months SOE from a certain part of the country. Then they pass an SI and they give a limited period. They might get 2 months in the first instance, then they can increase it. And then if you want to take it beyond a certain threshold, you have to go back to Parliament to get permission to go up to 12 months. So that was given on the understanding that when there is an increase in crimes, which seems to be out of hand, the government is to institute that to begin to bring crime back under control. I think you are familiar with these two cases that went to the court.
Correct.
They took them to the court. The 14 or 15 who were then arrested and detained felt that their rights were violated and they went to the court and they won their case. That judge said that the SOE was unconstitutional, one. Two, he said the police did not apply the due process, which the law had not taken away. You cannot just arrest the person because you think he's a gang leader. You have to have a
Racism.
reasonable cause to show that he's a gang leader. Then you can apply the SOE because he curtail your rights. And you do it in the interest of the broader population. So the court ruled against it. One, that it was constitutional, and two, that even if it was, they violated their rights. So they one get money if the case stands. The other judge, similar case, gone before another court. The next judge ruled differently. The next judge ruled in favor of the government and saying that the SOE is constitutional and that the people were dealt with properly. So here now, the two of them may go, the one that the government lost, evidently went to their appeal. And the one that the government won, the other party have to decide whether they appeal. So what the government decides now, if they do not do something, all of those SOEs that had gone before, all of these people can come to the court and claim damages.
Correct. So yeah, there was preemptive thing
Right.
there.
So you
Now,
have to resolve it. And the way
but
they believe is to go for the 13th Amendment, which again, that's it, the issue now we have to come down and discuss.
I got one major problem with those cases that went to court. How can two courts base basing their arguments on the same laws, because there are no different laws. They're looking at the same laws, come up with two different decisions. Something seems wrong about that, don't you think?
The
There,
you have a parallel case currently right in the US with the same thing with Trump and the rebellion, the 1878 Act, where Trump acted to bring in the National Guards into California without consulting with the governor.
Mhm.
So the governor took him to court, and the court ruled that Trump was wrong. They immediately take the case to the Fifth District, whatever they call them. You know, they're in different
Fifth
levels.
Circuit.
The Fifth Circuit, and they decide that they will put the land judge decision on hold until they hear the substantive matter. So, what is the issue around? When he said rebellion, what does it mean? When he said insurrection, what does it mean? So, in us now, let's look at our law. What one court said, that they don't believe that the law had intended to be using it to fight crime. He said crime should be fought by the methods that we have. He said that was intended that when there is an uprising, a serious problem in the society, a rebellion, a threat of civil war, he said then is when you should bring in the SOE. The other court felt that the circumstances prevail to justify it. So you get opinions from courts. Until when now we get a final opinion, which will be the Caribbean Court of Justice. It is then it becomes case law. And then we have to go by that. So what the government is doing in the meantime, sorry to interrupt, is saying let's amend the law, let's amend the Constitution. I think I will move so quick to amend that Constitution.
Yeah. Well, not only that, on the 13th, because I heard some of the Prime Minister's speech when he was speaking on this, and it is confined to the South Side, because he said that. He said, unfortunately, most of these crimes are committed on the South Side, so we have to find a few places in the South Side that we are going to designate as special areas. Then we're going to appoint a special court to take care of these cases. What came to my mind is that we're looking at blue-collar crime. Now, what happened to the white-collar crimes? Because while one young man shooting another young man is sensational and gets the headlines and gets people alarmed, a politician or a businessman or somebody gets away with $5 million, I believe it's a bigger crime. And maybe we need to look at that. Maybe we need to find designated areas for these major crimes and a special court to deal with these people. Because let's face it, after a certain amount of money, it's no longer crime, or there's no longer effects or penalties for that. Because once you got money, it's game over.
I see slightly different in the sense that to me, it doesn't matter whether it's a white-collar crime or a blue-collar crime to decide whether you want to put in place this SOE. I think it must be a crime that it was not as a result of a failure of government intervening through trying to make those societies receive the benefits of having fathers and mothers and children who can go to school, who can leave school, who can earn a living, and try to institutionalize ordinary decency in a society. If the crime is coming as a result of too many parents not having parents, if it's a result of too many children not having parents, it's a result of not being able to go to school because they don't have the money. Crimes like that don't need to use no SOE. Crimes like that need to be addressed through social interactions, money, help. I'm not saying you solve it, but you need money. So what you do? Why you want to spend in a capital budget? And I'm coming to that capital budget, and not I'm against capital budget. But why you want to continue to spend these millions into capital budgets when it is more important to put it into human budgets? For example, if you were to put 50 million to build a road up in the mountain Pine Ridge for tourists, as they were doing before, whatever it was, 125 million. Of course, the present government was not responsible for that. They cut it. But if you could think of that, why couldn't you think of that? Maybe we should put 50 million on Southside.
Yeah.
Let's deal with the problems that is causing these crimes, not the SOE, the SOU. And that's what the judge that went against it said. He said he don't believe it should be used to fight crimes. He said the government have enough instruments and means to fight crimes. So why use the SOE and curtail with sacred rights? Because when you use those SOEs, our rights will be compromised in any areas.
But,
Mm-hmm.
but see, this ain't true because now the definition of the SOE, and it seems that it gives the government wide-reaching powers and authority to do a lot of things. And I was always under the impression that an SOU basically um, it neutralizes all the laws that exist. All the normal laws of the Constitution are suspended in order that they can bring the matter under control. Is that not correct?
Yeah, if I remember well, and this is where the legal luminaries will be able to, we need to bring one of them on the show. I think this matter need to be discussed. I need, Mr. Chairman. But I am seeing it this way. If I am to compromise my sacred rights under the Constitution, then I must know that it is for the collective good, which could not have been addressed otherwise.
Right.
That is
Right.
the issue. So, is it that you need to have an SOE where you can't know? Remember now, by law, you can detain somebody, but you only can do it up to, I think, 48 or 72 hours. And if you don't charge them, you have to release her. What the SOE is doing is saying that I can hold you.
Up to 6 months.
That's right. Well, as long as the SOE is in effect, it could go up to a year, but they have to go to they could extend it. Some of them are
Yeah,
3 months.
yeah, yeah.
So
But
I could hold you for 3 months.
and you don't have to go to a court of law.
You're not going to know court of law because it's not for a trial. It's to hold
So
you.
all
So,
right. So,
right.
so this is what I'm saying. I mean that kind of wide-reaching power there that you put in the hands of the government. We have to be careful not who you pick up, but when you put something like that in effect.
That's
What
right.
you have to be very careful that when the SOU and let's be real, everybody wants to be safe. If you have people terrorizing the neighborhoods and kids like you say can't go to school, people can't go to work because they're afraid to come out of their house. People are getting shot like that. I could understand, but I
Yeah.
guess the argument is the same that the government of California is making. It was not to that point where you had to bring in Marines and you had to take over the National Guard and implement these draconian measures. Maybe, and I've said this from the start, the problem was that the government was too quick to rush in with this SOE because it really takes away all rights from people.
Well,
I
if
want
you,
to I want to say too that it's racism, right? When we look at who is being targeted, it's poor Black Belizeans, and keeping to um, violate these young people is it's actually a human rights issue, and I want to say that the compensation that these young men got,
They
some
didn't get
people,
they didn't get it yet.
or will be getting.
They don't.
I felt this was. Let me go back. I want to say the compensation that they were getting was from the group that was when COVID lockdown happened.
Right.
Um, they didn't commit a crime. These were kids, these were children, really. These were teenagers. These were Black teenagers who were picked up and taken, um, maybe as a preventative. That was what it was seemed like let's, before they commit the crime while everybody locked down and don't have no money, let's pick up this crew and just clean up the streets. But those were people's children, those were people's fathers, those were family members. And so and then they went to jail. And I feel like the Kobe Foundation has been pimping the government of Belize with these kind of inmates is where they can get the most vulnerables, put a number down and collect money for them, and someone needs to really be
That
advocating more with some sort of legal aid, because when they get locked down too, the amount of time that they even take to get legal assistance or legal advice or anything, it's a year. Imagine a year of your life is just gone just like that, and you still haven't even got, you don't even understand. Some of these children don't even understand why they're there for,
well,
you
let's
know.
let's be honest though, because you introduced the race card, and we have
Mm-hmm.
to ask where are these violent crimes happening? Who are mostly responsible for these violent crimes that are happening? And you talk about a year out of your life, but how about your entire life taken away?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to look at this from both sides of the issues, because well, murder is not an easy thing that you to take one, but you to destroy a whole family.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is affected in that family, all the friends of those people, that's ones at school and whatnot. So that's that one very serious thing. And I don't know if we can look at it in a that way as suggesting that, well, maybe the one racial thing. I don't know. I hesitate to go there.
I don't know if you may hear the saying, from the home to the jailhouse.
Yeah, that's the pipeline. That. I mean, Mr. Cole, you said it. You know, why
It's the
take?
pipeline. No,
Yeah.
let me show you something. The population of this country right now is about 25% Creole. What's the percentage of Creole in the jail?
Oh, must say 80%.
You had it almost right, just above 80. If you can have 80% of your people of that color in jail, when they represent only 25% of our population, it has nothing to do with their color. It has nothing to do with their genetics. It had to do with their circumstances. Most environmental. If it is environmental, don't you think the state has an obligation to see how it could work with the community to address the infection that is causing them to get the disease in that environment? Just like when the doctor finds that there's a cold spreading around, the type of illness comes from an physical environment. They goes to the environment and then deal with the environment. And once they clean that up, the cold and these illnesses go away. The same thing when you're dealing with human beings when it comes to bad behavior, let's call it that. So don't take it that these people are simple because of their color. You hear what that judge said 2 days ago when he ruled against Trump? He said, because I have the right to say it, but I also have the obligation to say it. He said what Trump did was racial. He said it was racial. He said he did it against blacks out of racism. The judge said that. He said, I'm saying it because I have the right, but I have the obligation to say it. An election.
But all right, the question is though, and to Susan's point, are they targeting people in Belize because of racism, or is it that you think the conditions that exist that create these problems are more prevalent in these areas where, say, the black kids live, or the
Well,
Creole kids children live?
when I say racism, Chairman, I'm talking about the whole ecosystem of what really breeds this, and of course, poverty is one of them, right? In Belize, um, some of these young men, they're not retaining studenthood, they're not finishing school. When it's time to get a job, it's really hard for some of them to even get a decent paying job. So when I'm saying racism, I'm talking about who is in power and who is who.
If you were to put your finger on what might be the cause of that, what would you guess? Just what is why?
I think there's been a prejudice in Belize, and I think that um, there've been a lack of engagement with our Creole and Garifuna people in Belize, where they are not being invested in at an early age. They're
Who are they investing in? The Hispanic population, because certainly we don't have that many white people among us anymore. So we either got the Creole, some dark, some
Well,
fairer skin.
I think it's clear, right? Who is being invested in Belize is the people who are in power. Those are the people who are able to afford to actually pay for their children to go maybe even outside of the
But
country
many of them are black, Susan.
for not in leadership in Belize right now. No,
Well, not right now, not
a
in
lot
this
of our
administration, I
leadership
don't
in
think.
Belize is mestizo or of a different not black. Maybe they might have a little percentage of black in them, but not all of them black. And most of we see who is in who is being empowered. It's men, and it's most of the mestizo men who are in the who is in power in Belize.
You're quite
So
right.
I think instead of spending time on the 13th Amendment and trying to get that all um,
Push
in
through.
to push through, I think they should have took that time and that resource to really form a stronger reparations committee and push for that. That's what I think is needed within the black community in Belize is start telling these people the truth and let them know that something was really done wrong and a lot. If you look at the south side of Belize, a lot of people who live there live on land that is not even considered leased land. It's just considered squatters' land, and their parents have lived there. It's like the parents live there, they live there, now their children live there. The government of Belize hasn't really have an initiative that really gone in there and say, hey, let's take notes and see the land that you live on. Let's give you the land. Let's give you the paper for the land. Let's set you up in a playing field where you're at least you're not just being
Let
a
me
third. You're not being a third, fourth generation black Belizean, and you still don't have a piece of land. You still don't have access to good education. You still don't have access to good health care. So there is some problems there, and it's sick that the Prime Minister of Belize is only focusing on. He's not saying let's put this SOE in Placentia, in Kikaka. No, it's targeting a specific group of people in a specific part of Belize. Who
yeah,
they do have problems, G. Michael. I do agree with you. They do have violent crime that is committed.
yeah.
But that's just like part of the effect of people are angry, they're hungry, they frustrated, they're ignorant, they engage in criminal activity, and so they're not the most gentle. They're the rough ones. There is a
You
problem.
you might consider this being devil's advocate,
Mm-hmm.
but there are two sides to these stories, and I think many times you only look at one side of the story. The other side is that people have to start to do more for themselves also.
Yeah,
Are
but
our people doing enough to lift themselves from this condition?
yeah,
Um,
I think we've seen a lot of Belizeans in this area who really got creative and
yeah,
um,
and
you
some can
know,
do it. Some have done it.
but I feel like yes, the government should. That's why the government is in place is to help facilitate and have a
Uh, all
environment
right.
that can engage people.
We were talking about the bad man syndrome,
Yeah,
and Joe was telling him somebody want they stop sell bad man at the shop. Is that something the government could do or should do?
I honestly, Mr. Joe, I went to Belize in November and I felt that um as you reach that junction by Stan Creek Junction, right? I felt like no alcohol should have been passed over that border to Toledo and PG around that time because a lot of people just you see people already in a bad situation economically and then they get extra drunk and they just get so
maybe,
I,
maybe
I,
I need that.
but
I want to,
instead they celebrate and when I feel like maybe that should have been more of a time where they should be meeting and having like engaging class workshops and really enjoying the cultural stuff but instead they were just
I,
drunk and
Drinking and partying.
I
yeah and it could be more effective it could be more
Joe the laugh. Make we hear what you got
I
to say.
want to come back to the Batman talk, but I want to give you two experiences I had. One on the street and one in the courtroom. I was there on 6th Street, which is a one-way street. I saw when this black boy on a bicycle with a torn blue jean pants at the knee, his hair kind of ruffled. He took a slight little turn down the one way, slight, to come to the shop, 6th Street shop.
Mhm.
Two policemen were there, two black policemen, and they stopped him. They let him raise his hand. They put down his bike. They began to search him. I felt that they were humiliating him, and I intervened. And I said, officers, with due respect to all of you, I did saw the gentleman. And I did agree that he violated it slightly by just slight, just maybe 2 feet out. I said, and I think he was wrong literally. I said, but suppose he makes an apology. Suppose he tell you he's sorry. Would you leave him alone? I tell the young man, I said, tell the police you're sorry. He said, yeah, I'm sorry for it. And they leave him. My point I'm making, that could have been a mestizo boy. We are profiling some of our black people in this society.
Would they have? Do you think they might not have stopped him had it been a mestizo boy?
Yeah, and I will tell you why.
Even two black police officers?
I will tell you why. No, yes, I will tell you why. You have to listen to the one in the courtroom and this one, then you come to your decision. If that black person happened to have been well dressed, nicely dressed, and violated it, they would not have stopped him. The profiling by policemen, not generally, I'm not saying the whole police force, but some very black people, they call it the Stockholm syndrome that caused it. They profile him not out of hate for black people, of course not. It's simple that in their minds, they see them as such, that they're the kind of people in gangs. The well-dressed guy, obviously, they don't see him as a gang member. So they profile you, which is not good. Well, here I am now in the courtroom, waiting for a trial for somebody who I thought I wanted to be there to hear the judgment. And I actually spoke with the judge afterwards. But while waiting, there are some senior police officers who were there, and they were paroling now these people to come in to go before the court. What I saw there were 10 black boys coming in, all of them black. The policemen that were there were black policemen, and I intervened with one of them, and I said, my brother, you know me and I know him. I said, my brother, I'm going to say something to each other. Look at this. These are black boys. The magistrate is black, you black. I don't want to light a shade of pale, but I don't think something wrong. It can't be because they're black this thing happened to them. We have to be a little more lenient with them. One or two, and then they come, Mr. Chairman, just if they jump that 1 gram of weed, they go after them. Those are things that I believe you have the law and you have discretion. Two of them drive down the one way. One well-dressed, the other isn't. He went with the one not well-dressed, especially if he black. So it's not racism per se, you know. Or profiling out of your unconsciousness.
It is profiling, and I don't know that we don't all do some type of profiling ourselves, because if you're walking down the street and you see a well-dressed person, you will be least likely to be cautious. And as if you see somebody poorly dressed, like you said, so and police officers, these are the type of people that they deal with people all day long. So they know the type that they're more likely to deal with when it comes to crime. And this is not in defense of this profiling, because I'm saying I'm on thin line that they walk most of the time. And you rightly said that there are black police officers, and you don't think that they would be doing it because of prejudice, because they'd be prejudiced against themselves, actually.
I don't think it was racism.
So I want situation that has to be looked at from many different angles and has to be studied. It's a social issue, a social problem.
It is.
I certainly believe that if we can work from both sides, if the law enforcement people can do more, as you say, be a bit more lenient. I got a story this morning, a fellow called me, actually, and said, G. Mike, when on a show, because I want to bring up an issue for me. A certain individual that hangs on the corner of a lane, and the police apparently stop him. He's always at the corner of that lane, but they carry in a house and I search a house.
No warrant.
I as far as that, I was trying to get the full story, and he told me that he may call me later and give me the full story. I don't know that they had a warrant, but they find 23 grams of weed. Um, and his point to me was they carry 6 people in the house. And he was saying, well, if they allow each person 10 grams of weed, and you got 6 people in our house, 6 of them could say, well, that weed amongst for all away. So that means there's no breach of the law there. So I was telling him that there must be something else to that story. If the police were wrong, first of all, in that if they had no warrant, they shouldn't have gone and searched the man's house. I don't care what kind of suspicion you got, unless it has to do with some kind of very serious crime. But if the weed you talk about, I think we have to ease up on that once and for all, because it has proven that if you're going to pressure weed like that, then you need to pressure bad man more, because bad man is doing a whole lot more harm than marijuana is doing out there to our young people. So if there's one thing that marijuana is doing, is, in the words of famous columnists and landers, it is making dreamers of potential achievers. Because a lot of our young boys out there just they crush weed all day long and they smoke one joint after the other and they dream about things that they want to do. Maybe that's something that we need to curtail or have some kind of educational program to teach them about the hazards of weed, and if you use it, there must be a better way of using it than just one after the other like a cigarette. It makes no sense.
Don't you think a human being can be so tempered that he can pass through hell to get to heaven?
You'll have to explain that a bit more before I answer it.
I think that if we have our people being sensitized with a certain sense of values, that we could be in the midst of temptation and we still not commit ourselves.
All right, but where does that go? Formal or informal education? Where does that come from?
Where it will go is this, that rather than trying to ban the use of alcohol, as they did in the bootlegging period, trying to ban the use of marijuana, which we did, and we just slightly decriminalized it, nothing much.
Right.
But if I can better instill in you values, that you can say, boy, I want to take one drink, I want black label. I want 2 drinks, and that's enough for me to talk with you and socialize. And I done that. And I want to take one smoke. And you get a little feeling and you left that. I feel like if you can take the human being, given its imperfection, which is not, again, the fault of him, but of the nature. And if you can more try to create a society where you are not going to try to keep them away from the temptation of the vices, but try to insulate them or try to make them more discretionary in the use of it.
Kind of utopian, though, don't you think?
Yeah, it is utopian. That's what it must be. It must be utopian. Otherwise, you will never be able to get any better. You have to go on utopian idea.
But is that achievable? Is it practical?
No, you will not achieve perfection, but if you don't pursue it, you will never get any better.
You got a point. There's something to aim for anyway.
Well, I would go with the Italian philosopher. He says some of us are getting old too early. Some of us get, he said some of us get old too quick. He said we get smart too late.
I like that.
I feel like it addressed me. Go ahead, though.
No. What I'm saying is this.
Because it's true.
If we begin to take, and I want to go in theory first then, let's say we could use one key, any one of them. And quick inside in us key, we could hold about 100 people. And we have them well balanced in gender. We have them well balanced in skills. And we put them out there with all the facilities, and we train them and we teach them. You can create 100 people who are likely to be law-abiding, decent human beings, because we have it in us to be that. And then you allow them to repopulate or populate, and they begin to populate.
No.
I
I
on theory.
that theory indeed. That
No.
is a theory.
No, your theories.
But
All the things that you succeed in life with were first theories.
yeah.
When you talk about that dream just now, They said that if you can conceive something and you can believe it, you can achieve it.
Let's see. Susan, you were getting ready to say
I
something.
believe
I
that
hope
too,
you.
Mr. Curry. I want to go back to the young man that was outside of his residence.
He was on the corner of the street,
He,
actually. Yeah, close to his residence. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Two things comes to mind. I would say that maybe the police probably um target him or went after him maybe because they might think he's maybe selling weed. I'm not saying he is, right?
I
That might be something that might be
yes, I thought about
right.
that too. Yeah,
But
they had
to
information also about something. Yeah.
right, but then to stop somebody who's just in front of the house and say, "Hey," and not have a warrant, and find that's a small amount of weed
Correct. Correct.
that they find, and to curse six individuals who could easily, say, "Hey, that weed is for medical use, medical reason."
Or split it up among us. Give us 5 gram a piece, and all of us under the limit.
Right. Or it could have been a simple fine, a ticket, right? Nobody had to go do all that booking and everything. I think the Belize government, because I see there's a big gap when it comes to the cannabis industry in Belize and who really benefits from it and still who is getting the short end of it. I think a positive way to engage people who it could be engaged positively, where instead of seeing this high percentage of people just not having anything to do, just getting high, wasting potential, I think have them join the cannabis industry in a positive way, in agriculture, in entrepreneurship, in the medical treatment of it, delivering it to our elders, and making products out of it. I feel like Belize could really tap into that.
They'll be getting high on their own supply.
Yeah,
Um,
and nothing is wrong with that. A lot of these people, I have psychosis going on, right? And if I think if some of them were in the United States, they would be getting pharmaceutical medication for mental illness
Crazy money,
and and
as
and,
it's
and,
called.
and if they can, um, I don't have nothing against people smoking weed, um, but if they can use it medically and learn how to use it medically and teach other people who visit in Belize how to use it medically, I think they could tap into it and be more
So should
positive.
we legalize it totally? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
because
saying?
if look at it, Jim Michael, you have to look at it. If you have, let me go back real quick because the point I wanted to make, if you go and you see a tourist and you go and you don't even, you leave them, they leave them alone. They
Who
don't
does?
even
No, they
yeah.
just arrested one with a couple grams coming in.
Well, I think
They
they do that. They do that just to collect the fines. But if you go and and in Belize, I see it. They leave the tourists alone. They don't take them in their apartment and go check how much weed they have like that.
But I
That's
don't think they
mostly
do it to Belizeans anyway, and I don't think this is some common practice. It's not something that happens often, but once is too many, as they would say. But Joe, what do you think about legalize? Should we legalize marijuana?
Yeah, I think we should decriminalize it.
Are we going that way? Decriminalize or legalize
I would say decriminalize. And
first in the first instance?
yeah, but I had a difference with the Minister of Police and new business or whatever they do, new investment.
Yeah.
I thought that his intention was good, but I thought, and I said to him, if I were you, I wouldn't promote it as an industry. But coming from you, the Minister of Police, I would say decriminalize it and the grounds of human rights. Human rights. That's what the United Nations had in mind.
mm-hmm.
No, you can now industrialize. Let those now use it, grow it, and use it for the good of society. Because there are a lot of merits to it. It has a lot of good things to it.
Yeah.
I saw the amount of things that they could make from it, apart from medications, apart from
Yeah, they could do fabric, building materials.
that's right.
Yeah,
They make
medical equipments. Yeah.
that's
You
right.
know,
No,
not to get not to get political, but I could never forget when Esquivel and his administration, shortly after coming into power for the first time in 1984, invited the Americans in to spray paraquat on all our weed, and we were planting the best weed, producing the best weed. After that, they killed all the bees. That affected also the citrus industry and many other plants that we had industry that we had going, or different kind of fruits, no. And
Mm-hmm.
then shortly after that, lo and behold, America legalizes weed, and they start producing the good weed. Because now when you get weed, you have to get a foreign weed, whether the good weed. Belize weed, no what, not like Bush. So I don't, and looking back on that, that was a terrible move.
It was.
Yeah.
And you know who was the driving force? The Deputy Prime Minister, Paul Thompson.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
He was the one that was behind it to get them to spray those fields.
crazy.
Remember it was Rombatong. No, that was a lot of economic activities. If you go to Honey Camp, that big lake, you see a lot of incomplete buildings left there because it was being driven by the money coming from the marijuana. So there was a big trade up there. Things were really flowing. And then that was where they attacked because that was where the industry was growing.
Yeah.
That was
So,
that.
but I mean, kind of under the table economy was going on.
That's right. But it
But
was really, I mean, creating a lot of jobs, a lot of
yeah, of course, that's going to spread into the community. Yeah.
yeah. And then after that spraying, everything just gone. And what happened? That is the argument that was made against it. The stronger one came in, cocaine.
Right. You see? So that was the bigger problem when
Yeah.
that came in, because obviously, and this goes back to what Susan is saying also, that the social problems, and you're saying one that we have to address, is that it creates a sense of frustration in particular young people, and despair and lack of hope, that they need something to grab onto. They need something that will ease their pain. I sad that they turned to cocaine, because that one they know something you want. Um, Old man once told his son, with cocaine, one hit is too many, and after that, 1,000 will not be enough. So we see too many of our people chasing it, and I'm happy to say I don't see it as prevalent as it used to be. Um, though there are enough out there to make it still a concern. But I agree with you. I heard the Minister of Police, though, suggesting that he had a plan to put in effect that we can commercialize marijuana. Do you think he has a plan, and will the plan work?
I think he should have a plan, and I think the plan can work
Mhm.
because it's not something that we will be inventing. We will not be creating it. We'll be innovating.
And we certainly have the earth, the land.
Exactly, exactly. So we have the soil, we have the agricultural benefits. All we need to do now is to value add it. Just like if we value add tomatoes and we value add other fruits and vegetables. So we're going to value add marijuana.
All right. One more thing. See, Suzanne, you gone. There's tomorrow is the 19th of June, I believe, correct? As far as if my calendar is right. And that is what is known as Juneteenth. Juneteenth, the day when the black Americans in Texas received words that the slavery was ended, emancipation, if you will, and it's being celebrated now as a birthday, as a holiday in many states in the United States. Um, we in Belize celebrate uh, um, Emancipation Day on August the 1st. Should we, Joe? And what are your thoughts on that? Because I have a few.
Well, emancipation, Mr. Chairman, was something that I had a lot of interest in first from the historical perspective that it was supposed to be emancipation of slaves. And the reality of that was that it was not really the true sense of emancipation. It was simple that they were no longer maybe chained, they were no longer under forced labor. But it took years, even until now, when some of them are still living in a circumstance that they are not literally slaves as they were, in the sense of being cuffed and whipped, brutalized and abused, raped. So I feel like it is something to celebrate as the beginning of a movement to liberate people from the treatment of another person who think that he is superior to that person. So theoretically, again, I'm beginning with the theory that it made sense. But we still have a long way still to go to carry out emancipation.
A long way. We have to free, as Bob Marley would say, you have to free your minds from mental slavery.
Yeah.
Susan,
Yes. For
repara-
we're talking about.
reparation.
Oh, I thought we're talking about Juneteenth. Sorry, I got cut
Yeah, we're
off.
talking about Juneteenth, and you might want to throw in some
Yes,
thoughts
I
on
do.
that.
I do
Why
want to
not?
share with our audience. And I live in a northeastern state, and not much Belizeans are here. But um, tomorrow, my business, Lila's Cultural Treasures, where I do sell Belizean indigenous craft from the Garifuna and the Mayan community. And I do sell the Garifuna bitters. So tomorrow, usually June 19th. I'm usually at an event locally here in Maine that try to promote um, awareness of the history of Black people, especially here in America. What I do want to mention, what I see right now is a lot of the universities um, are venting their policies to fit under the Trump administration DEI policies. What they're doing as well currently is a lot of the history stuff, especially they're targeting like freedom liberators like Miss Harriet Tubman. So
Hmm.
like they actually removing like some of the literature and even the art from spaces and museum, and a big museum, the African American Museum in Washington D.C. A lot of the Black um, history stuff is being removed, and so that's actively happening right here in this time. And so a
But
lot of the Juneteenth event that I've been connecting with and is a
they're
part
cutting
of,
back on that too.
they are, but they're actually, that's like kind of the highlight of the this year is bringing awareness
Yeah, yeah.
to those
They,
things.
but they must be crazy because 400 years of slavery. I mean, if you could think of one day in slavery and you could see what that would be, and then to try it now, and after it was done, now you will now try to remove all traces of it.
Yeah.
It
And
is insane.
G Michael, they've been doing it. They've been doing that within the
Slowly, yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. No, it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
no, it's just like on steroids. No, it's just hyper.
But and again, this is the other side of that because this is where the informal education comes in, where
Mm-hmm.
every black person ought to be teaching their children about blackness and slavery. And because we don't ever want to consider having that happen again in any form and fashion. And I was getting to ask you about your thoughts on reparation because that has been tossed around under Trump. I don't see it getting any traction. But
Nerd the Bersenio.
nervous saying,
I think the one of the only or not one of the only, but one of the few leaders who I currently see kind of having that sort of conversation is the Prime Minister of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines. He vocally, and he goes to um
Gonzalez?
right, Mr. Ralph
Well,
Gonzalez,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he vocal about that, and I was really hoping that
he is from where he is from,
Saint Vincent and the Grenadines.
which is interesting because I saw a clip the other day of him lecturing this fellow Wellington Ramos, who you might be quite familiar with, because and you might have some history on this, because he went to the
SVG.
to Saint Vincent and was kind of almost was, well, laying claim then as an indigenous person from there. And apparently Gonzalez was adamant that you're not going out with that because you must be crazy. You're acting just like the colonialists. Did you see that, and did you hear anything about that?
Yeah, I think that's actually a couple years older, but yes, I think I don't know much about it, but I do want to say what I thought when I learned of I think a lot of our Garifuna, even the teachers that I had and a lot of leaders that I've been around, always kind of have this love story and this um, idea of returning back to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, especially as a Garifuna person.
We live here, but this is not our home.
And well, it is our home, but kind of like that's kind of where we kind of pay homage to as well, of course, as Africa. And I think the love story kind of just passed down from generation to generation. But now when we have um, people who, we're not that organized, I think him it's good that he did that and that happened, so we know how. Because even people in SVG were saying, well, are they going to come and take with job? Are they going to come and take with land? And then he was also, one of his response, the prime minister was, SVG is such a small island. Why don't I ask the government of Belize for land there? Like, and so um,
So,
uh,
so,
uh,
so did that close the door to that idea
I don't think it closed the door. I think it should have really um, make us want. I feel like that's part of my reason why I organized and did my pilgrimage to SVG was because I said, man, I have a whole different concept of what it was, but the reality of it is we are not citizens of that country, right? It was couple 200 400 years ago we left from there. um there would have to be maybe something put into parliament that can say, hey, we acknowledge this happened. Let's have some sort of initiative that would bring people back and maybe give them some sort of citizenship
land?
or visit it, or I don't know, some make some agreements with the people. And but yeah, other than that, they're not able to go to SVG. If they want to get land in SVG, they would have to buy the land and apply for a land ownership permit in SVG. So I think a lot of the Garifuna had a whole different idea of what SVG was to them.
Why is it they want to go back there?
Well, I don't know if they want to go back, but they would want to be able to maybe go and stay longer or go and have a piece of land.
Claim it as their
And
motherland?
the part that I do would agree with that sometimes should be invested in is the island of Baliso, which the government does not own it, but have some sort of control over it right now. I think right now the Garifuna people do have say. They can come in that aspect and say, okay, well, we have Baliso, where we can put maybe a monument that acknowledge this island was where a lot
I,
of.
Yeah, I see that. And where the ship probably left, was that where it left from? Where they put them first before they put them on the ships or something like that. But but
Yeah.
but doesn't this put the Garigano in a interesting scenario where you're in between two countries now? And I've heard claims that Garinagu are suggesting they're indigenous to Belize. I've heard that. Can you be indigenous to two people, to two places? And can you be looking for a homeland at two places at the same time? And that's something that you have to look at in your continued advocacy, no? Don't you
Mhm.
think?
Yeah, I think there's small steps that's being made done. I know that there for Heroes Day, the government does try to facilitate pilgrimage back, and people can come and But there's nothing really in like parliament or legislature that can say, okay, the Garifuna people does have say to SVG. They can obtain nationalization of citizenship. You know, they need to be. I think they might need to be a little bit more something that could let them feel like, okay, we do have. And I think the repatriation part. Sorry, the repatriation is where I can see that happening, where he's very vocal about it, but it's also making other countries like Honduras, Guatemala, and the other Belize more vocal about, okay, yes, we do have evidence of these things happening. There was court order in Britain, in the British courts and stuff, that is evidence now that says, oh, there really was something that happened. So I can see they have different avenues where they can come in and make that claim. And I don't know how much Garifuna people would really want to move to SVG as well. SVG has a lot of social problems, just like the other communities. That is.
And Belize not bad. Belize is nice.
Yeah, SVG
Yeah.
is not bad to either. SVG is growing. It has a lot of tourism, but it does have a lot of crime. It does has a lot of
But you,
incest. It does has a lot of lacking of
Susan,
education and stuff like that. So they
fill
do
me in
have.
a little, fill me in a little history here. Since
Mm-hmm,
Vincent and the Grenadines and the Garifuna,
mm-hmm.
how they become indigenous to that island?
Oh, that's where they live, though. Yeah.
Yeah, they may live there, but where did they come from? They never come from. When they came here, they must have came from there. But where they were before that,
Well, they were Africans. They were Africans.
Africans
They were
mixed with
Africans.
but the Indians,
They
the
were
indigenous
African.
Indians from there
right?
Yeah.
were mixed. Because I can remember early on when the Garinagu wanted to be called Caribs. They insisted on being called Black Caribs. Um, so because they felt that they were identifying with their Carib root.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not hear the Arawak part, and I didn't get that until later on, no. But that one interesting history. And I'm saying you're kind of like caught between two homelands, if you will.
Yeah.
And maybe you might have to make a choice as to where we're going to be. Um,
Because if everybody want to go back to where they came from, we all end up back in Africa.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, tomorrow's Juneteenth. Remember that. It's a big occasion. Whether they want to continue it or continue making it big, we, all people from that heritage, must understand our past. But coming this weekend is also another big date, the 21st, which is the summer solstice. And this is
Mm.
something that is no longer celebrated, but I think it should be bigger than Christmas. Um, because actually, Christmas is the winter solstice is basically what Christmas replaced. Summer solstice now, I think at some point we should stop because it is when indeed the sun stops growing, if you will, and starts start life and start dying. Then they're getting shorter. The days start getting short and whatnot. It's not. I don't like to put things in terms of life and death because there's a finality to that, no, and there's no finality to the sun and its voyage to the other side of the, if you will, north to south, south to north. A lot of people don't track it, but they want drastic move. Actually, if you watch the sun as it rises every morning, so this weekend. Um, we do have the solstice. Um, I don't want to seem too pagan, but I want, for me, a very important date, and we have to look on that some to celebrate. Guys, it is 9 o'clock. Any final words, anything we didn't cover that you guys want to bring up before we leave?
I can say my short closing. Thank you guys for having me on tonight, and I just want to keep encouraging people like ourselves to keep speaking up and keep being engaged within the community that they live in.
And we want you to keep coming on, seriously. Thank you. Joe, welcome back again. How you stand? You good?
Well, it's always a value to me to be on a show where you can get informed and learn from other people. This is
Yeah.
a learning process until then.
Of course, we want to thank all the people who listen to us. CY, we're done here.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
So every day we learn something, it's a change.
That's true.
We are no longer the same person.
All right. CY must have stepped out of the room there, but we're good. Yeah, man.
Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire.
Cinco, seis, cinco, seis, cinco, seis, cinco. Cinco, seis, cinco, seis, cinco, seis, cinco. Cinco, seis, cinco, seis, cinco, seis, cinco. Cinco, seis, cinco, seis, cinco, seis, cinco.
Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire.
Most jelly, jam no shake like that. And most lava because fire no hot like that. Body organic, that gym squats that. 0% fat, woman. Straight savage, thicker than a sticker from out of my fridge. The way she have the thing to swing like big bridge. Me have to tiptoe fi gain leverage.
Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire. Cinco side, them gal fire. Pull up on the block, rocking kingdom attire.
Cinco, seis, cinco, seis, cinco, seis, cinco. 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 5 and then 6. Girl, flex, time fi have. Make we just chill on Netflix. Now make the outside nice, create no conflict. Hating pan, we loving relationship. We have to stay wide from the toxic drip. Plus your grip, have me the pop off like a rocket. You and me wifey and me side chick. Read the pamphlet. Read the pamphlet.